Hello 8th graders. This video is to tell you about your density lab that you are going to be working on now that you are finished with your density quiz. For the density lab, here are a few details before I go into the actual assignment. This is going to be going in your 80% category, so this is going to be in the same category along with the quiz that you just took. This is just another way to show your mastery of density, so if you are not a strong test taker, perhaps this will be a good way for you to show your mastery. And then the last piece of information from this screen is that this is due on Monday, February 22nd, so I highly advise you to pause this video at this point, add that to a planner or wherever it is that you keep track of such items. So here are some of the details. You're going to find this document in your Google Classroom account. I shared it with you last night. The directions are that your job is to create a well-written, high-quality procedure that is followed. If followed, will give an answer to one of the following questions. And on this document that you have in your Google Classroom, I want you to highlight which of the three choices that you pick, but let me quickly run them down for you. First one is what happens to the density of a liquid when something is dissolved into it. So for example, if you dissolve sugar or salt into a liquid, how do those two things change the density of the liquid, and how would you test that? What would you change, what would you measure, and how would you measure it? Number two, how does the temperature affect the density of a liquid? So imagine having some liquid that you are either making warm, cold, or both, and then measuring the density as a result. Same as the last one, how would you measure the things that you plan on measuring? And number three is how precise can we be at measuring the density of small objects? So imagine that you have something maybe even as small as sand grains, or something very tiny, where the volume is hard to measure if you have just one piece of that material. I would like you to test how the accuracy of your measurement for density changes depending on how much of the sample that you have. So starting really tiny, and as you increase the size of your sample, how good do your density measurements get using the types of equipment that we have in our lab? So suppose that you want to do question number two. If that were your choice, you would go up and highlight whichever one you would choose in some flashy color to let me know which choice you're making within your document. Scrolling down, the next part is the procedure, and this is 85% of this grade, so this is definitely the highest priority item. For this step, it's very, very similar to what you did in the science fair and many other labs in this class. I want you to add your materials into this list. Please remember that they must include amounts. Into the second part is the steps, so you're literally going to have like step 1, step 2, step 3, etc. Please make sure that your first step is not gather materials. That's why you have a materials list. Finally, the third part of this section is variables. I need you to type in your IV, your DV, and at least 3 good control variables. We'll talk about what good is in just a second. And then 15% of your lab grade is going to come from the data table. Now, you are obviously not going to do this lab today. You are just planning for it. But I want you to have a data table, at least an empty one, prepared. So rows and columns, but nothing filled in the center. So quickly, let's go through the rubric. I'm not going to get too much into this because you can read it and you should read it, but I have listed the percentages for each part on the left. I hope you notice immediately that the procedure content is worth half of the grade for this assignment, so make sure that you read that closely. And all the way through to the bottom, things like grammar, data table structure are with smaller percentages. The main things that I want to point out here is within procedure content, I'm mostly looking that you can reliably show me how to gather density data. Remember, this is an assessment for density. Show me that you understand what density is through your creation of a procedure, and that is going to net you the most points. If you have any other questions about this, you can of course email me and let me know what's on your mind. Otherwise, good luck.